meet. And so Enrique's plan was to go out on this mushroom hunting trip, and when they got back, he wanted to cook a feast using these mushrooms for his wife and his friends. The group slowly made their way uphill until they finally saw the outskirts of the abandoned town, La Musara was more than 900 years old, and now it's just a collection of crumbling ruins, some dating back to prehistoric times. La Musara had never been a big town. At its peak, it had about 300 residents. But the last of the remaining residents of this town had finally fled 40 years earlier, and so now it was a ghost town. The group made their way over to one of the buildings that was right on the outer perimeter of La Musara. It was basically just a foundation with 3 walls still standing. There was no roof. And the friends, they went over to this building, and from right next to it, they were able to look straight down the main drag of La Musara. It was basically just a dirt road that went straight out, and all along the road were other kind of ruined foundations of where buildings used to be. And fairly far down this road, maybe 200 feet away from where all the friends were standing, was the center of La Musara, which was marked by this big church with a huge steeple, and the church was actually in decent shape. It did not totally crumble onto itself like the rest of the buildings around it. And then behind the church, somewhat visible from where the friends were standing, was this overgrown cemetery, and then off to the side of the church was this pond that was also very overgrown, and it was full of croaking frogs. Enrique and his friends just stood there next to their dilapidated building, staring at La Musara in silence. Now, they knew this place was going to be very creepy. You know, people had said it was haunted, and that was a big reason why they wanted to come here. But now seeing it in person, I mean, really the creepy factor was much higher than they expected. It really did look like a spooky place. And then adding to the spook factor was very clearly, as they were looking down the same road, the friends could see this mist kind of starting to envelop the town. Jorge had told friends when he was doing this research about La Musara that the mist was really a trademark of this town. At night, it basically got completely consumed in white mist. But now the friends are looking down this road, it's the middle of the day, and already the mist is starting. Finally, Jorge broke the silence and said, "Hey, I want to show you guys something." And I grabbed his girlfriend Sophia's hand, and he began kind of jogging down the main road in the direction of the church.
13.
So Enrique and Anna followed him. And after only walking maybe 10 or 20 feet, Enrique happened to turn around and look back where they had just been standing next to this dilapidated building.
14.
And already he couldn't see that building because the fog had rolled in and totally obscured his view. Enrique couldn't help but feel a little uneasy, again, because he thought the fog was supposed to come in at night, and it's broad daylight, and here we are, totally covered in fog. But he shook it off, thinking, what's the big deal? And so Enrique turned back around, and he and Anna picked up with Jorge and Sophia, who by this point had stopped a little farther down the road, off to the side, where there was this strange rectangular rock that was maybe 2 feet tall, just kind of jutting up out of the ground. And when Enrique and Anna made it to Jorge and Sophia, Jorge placed his hand on the top of this strange rock, and looking very satisfied with himself, he would tell his friends, "This is the Sis Stone, and people say it contains dark powers." The Sis Stone was actually one of the oldest things in all of La Musara. Back in the day, Muslim armies used to march through La Musara, which actually got its name from this. La Musara means the place to march. And so these armies, as they would pass through La Musara, making their way to the valley down below, they would always stop at the Sis Stone because they believed it had magical powers that could help them defeat their enemies in their upcoming battles. Now, the Muslim armies were long gone by this point, but the Sis Stone was still there, and people still said that it contained that kind of magical power, that there were dark forces at work inside of the stone, and so to touch it was very risky. In fact, some people said, if you touch the Sis Stone, you could be sucked into this parallel world full of all these demonic entities. And so as Jorge told the group about all this history surrounding the Sis Stone and how no one should touch it, remember, he's got his hand squarely on the Sis Stone the whole time. And so when he finishes telling the story, he looks at the others and said, "Come on, somebody else touch it." Jorge's girlfriend, Sophia, said, "Absolutely not. I'm not about to tempt evil spirits here." But Enrique's wife, Anna, said, "You know what? I'll touch it." And so Jorge smiled, he took his hand off the Sis Stone, and Anna, she walked forward, she took a breath, and then she placed her hand on the stone. And for a second, the whole group just held their breath, like something was going to reach out and grab Anna and pull her into the stone, but nothing happened. A minute later, Anna had put her hand off, and the whole group was laughing. But just a couple of seconds later, Enrique, who had been laughing along with the group, suddenly noticed that the frogs in the pond near the church, a little farther down the road from where they were suddenly so much louder. It was almost like when they touched the stone, it had maximized the volume of these frogs. And so Enrique turned his whole body, staring down the road through the mist and fog at this pond, and he could kind of barely make it out. He was trying to see if there was something obvious causing these frogs to kind of go crazy. As he stared at this pond, which again he could barely see, right behind it was the church, but there was lots of fog kind of blocking the church, and for a second the fog kind of parted, and Enrique got a full shot of one of the windows of this abandoned church, and in the window was this dark figure just standing there staring at Enrique and his friends, and Enrique sees this thing in the window, and in a second it was gone, and then the fog rolled back in, covered up the window, and Enrique couldn't see anything anymore. And so Enrique just stood there in stunned silence, having no idea if what he just saw had really just happened or if it was in his imagination or something. But before he could even try to process what had just happened, he heard his name being called. And so he kind of snapped out of it, and he turned back to the group, and it was Anna, who was now jokingly saying, "Come on, Enrique, touch the stone too." Enrique quickly scanned Anna, Sophia, and Jorge's face, and they were all smiling and laughing still, and so clearly none of them had seen this figure in the window. And so Enrique kind of just looked at all his friends, and then he looked back in the direction of the church. Friends clearly had not stopped at the church. They had not tried to go in. They had gone behind the church into the cemetery. Enrique did not want to go inside the church because even though, again, he had told himself that, that figure wasn't real, it wasn't really in the window, still there was a part of him that wanted to stay far away from this building. But after Enrique walked past the pond and began side-skirting the church to get to the cemetery, he just stopped and turned and actually faced the window, kind of like involuntarily. He was looking at the window where this dark figure had been. And again, it's empty, there's nothing there, but Enrique felt like something was pulling him towards this window. And so without saying anything to his friends, who weren't really paying attention to Enrique, they're kind of just walking into the cemetery, Enrique walked right up to this window, he's right in front of it, he's looking inside, and now he can see into the actual church. And it's totally ruined inside. You can see where the pews used to be on the ground. You could also see where the pulpit used to be, where the priest would give mass. And as Enrique stood there staring into the church, he kept leaning closer and closer and closer into the church until finally he felt like he really wanted to move away and get away from the church, but it was like he couldn't. He just kept getting pulled into this opening. And then as this was happening, the sound of the frogs louder and louder until Enrique felt like he was totally consumed by these frogs. Meanwhile, just around the corner of the church and back in the cemetery, Anna, Jorge, and Sophia were kind of laughing and walking around the cemetery, reading the different headstones, when at some point, Anna, Enrique's wife, just happened to look up, and she realized Enrique was not there with them. And so Anna, she walked over to the gate of the cemetery, and she looked up along the side of the church, and there was Enrique kind of leaning forward into this window looking into the church. And so Anna, she yelled out to him a couple of times, but Enrique did not even notice her or acknowledge her. He just continued leaning forward, looking in this window. And finally, Anna got right up next to Enrique, and she actually shook his shoulder. And when she did that, Enrique kind of snapped out of it and turned and looked at her, but didn't say anything. He just had this totally confused look on his face. And Anna, she looks up at her husband, and she's like, "Come on, come into the cemetery. That's where everyone is. Come on." And then Anna turned and skipped towards the cemetery. And once Anna was back in the cemetery, she just got right back to walking around and looking at all the different headstones. And at some point, as she was looking at one particular headstone, she took a few steps back to get a better look at it, and she accidentally bumped into another headstone, a big cross that had a line drawn across it, and fell to the ground and it broke. Jorge and Sophia heard the sound of the stone breaking in half, and they turned and looked at Anna, and they kind of quickly understood what had happened. And Jorge, he just started laughing at her, and he said, "Oh boy, now you've upset the evil spirits in this town. You better put that back together." Now, Anna was trying to make light of this, but she was totally panicking and did not like the fact that she had just desecrated a grave site in a potentially haunted town. And so she began picking up the headstone and trying to put the stone back on top, but it was no use. It was totally broken. And so as Anna continued to fumble with this headstone, and as Jorge continued to laugh and harass her about all the evil spirits that were going to attack her because of what she did, Jorge's girlfriend, Sophia, who was right next to him, she started getting on edge, and she said, "Hey, Jorge, is it true that this place is haunted? I mean, really, is this actually a haunted town? I mean, what's the deal?" And Jorge, at this point, he stops laughing at Anna, and he turns to Sophia in her coffin into that grave without realizing General Serkos was below it, and then they filled it in, and then they placed a headstone on her grave, but because they thought she was a witch, they decided not to write her name on the headstone. Instead, they just etched a horizontal line across her headstone. And so after this incident with the rival soldiers desecrating this woman's grave and her body, La Musara was never the same. People in the town began dying left and right, and their soil went bad, so they couldn't plant any crops, and then all these insects came through the town, and then all these plagues of illnesses and diseases came through. And so it wasn't long before La Musara had developed this reputation of being cursed. And by the 1950s, that curse apparently had driven the last few people out, officially making it a ghost town. After Jorge wrapped up the story, Anna was just horrified, looking straight down at the ground, because it would turn out the gravestone that she had accidentally knocked over and broken, well, it had a horizontal line etched across the middle of it. It was the witch's headstone. That was the one she had broken. And so suddenly feeling totally spooked, Anna was about to yell to Jorge and Sophia that she wants to leave now, when she happened to glance over at the base of one of the cemetery walls, and she saw the perfect bloody milk-cap mushroom, the exact type she knew her husband was looking for. And so Anna walked over, she picked this mushroom, and she turned around to show it to Enrique, but Enrique was not in the cemetery. And so right away, Anna thought, wait, did my husband ever actually follow me back down into the cemetery after I saw him by the church? She couldn't remember. She thought he followed her, but she wasn't sure. And so Anna yelled out for Enrique, but he never called back. And so she turned and looked over at Sophia and Jorge, who she could barely see through the fog, and she asked them, "Hey, have you seen my husband? Is he in here? Did you see where he went?" They both said, "No, we have no idea." And so Anna, who at this point was now really starting to panic, because this whole situation in La Musara was getting pretty spooky for her. And so she just dropped the mushroom and took off running out of the cemetery. Now, Sophia and Jorge did not really know what was going on. They didn't understand the urgency that Anna was feeling to find Enrique. And so they saw her take off to go find Enrique, and they just kind of casually walked on after her. And when they turned the corner and they exited the cemetery and began walking basically alongside the church, now again, the visibility is terrible from all this fog, as they moved along, they couldn't see Anna or Enrique, but they could hear Anna calling out for Enrique over and over again. And as they moved,
journey up the Mekong. Let me show you something. Look at this. I'm looking for Pol Pot's grave. You know where it is?
You come on,
You're from here. Oh, never mind, no problem. Oh my God, are you? Well, okay, this way. We're going to have a few language difficulties in this part of the world, I think. Anyway, something I want to tell you, as I put my snazzy little pink helmet on, is that comic leaders have always been fond of nicknames, whether that be Stalin or Shay, and Salazar was no different. Let's begin our journey in Southeast Asia, looking for some traces of the man whose shadow still cast across this friendly nation. The man commonly known as Politique Potential, or to you and me, Pol Pot. Let's go. Oh, so undignified. Yes! This here is the part of Cambodia. The Khmer Rouge retreated to when they were defeated by the Vietnamese in the late 70s. The last stronghold of the Khmer Rouge is exactly here. So today, do you know where is Pol Pot?
8.
I'm looking for Pol Pot's grave. Yeah. Straight. You? With me? Oh, let's go. For this video, I've asked the world's leading family history research service, My Heritage. One of the burning questions I've always had is, why am I so fascinated by so much history? Why have some roots from that part of the world? Well, thanks to my heritage, I discovered that my DNA is part Eastern European. Delving deeper with the use of the My Heritage family tree builder, I started to find all kinds of connections stretching back hundreds of years. Take, for example, my great-great-uncle, Zmitrok Biedula, who was a Belarusian poet and political activist in the early 20th century. Here's a photo of him I found on his profile. Can you spot any resemblance? You can also add your own photos of family members so others can see what their relatives look like in the past. I'm adding a photo of myself so future generations of my family can see if they inherited my good looks or not. You can easily restore, colorise and animate old photos. Simply upload photos or choose photos from your family tree and restore and watch them come to life. I restored numerous old photos, some of which were over 100 years old, and even animated what have been long-distant cousins. There is also an instant discovery tool which can instantly add people to your family tree at the touch of a button. I found all kinds of distant relatives through this simple tool, such as Nikas Miskevich, seen here with some of my little unknown relatives. If you also find researching your family tree interesting and want to find out about your ancestors with My Heritage, then they have over 20 billion easily searchable historical records from all over the world where you can piece together your family history. To get started, sign up for a 14-day free trial and join all the features My Heritage has to offer by using my link in the bio down below. Do it and let me know in the comment section if you've got any interesting relatives. Right, let's get back to the video.
Conchera, what lovely people here. You asked where the dictator's grave is, he said, I'll take you. Probably goes all the time hanging out. This is real Khmer Rouge country.
Where is it?
Oh, the barn.
Look at this. Pol Pot was cremated here.
I'm looking for Pol Pot grave. How some of those people live on the Mekong River and its tributaries. And right now I'm here on the Tonle Sap. Let's go and have a little nosy about on a floating village. It's a bit of a narrow gangway. Not a problem for a seaman like me. This is your house?
Yes.
And so where do people sleep here? Where do people sleep? Here. You put mattress on the floor and you sleep.
Yeah, there's more skill on that.
Yeah.
They're living around with their family.
And how many people live here on this little house with you?
Or maybe it's 8 people.
8 people in here. There we go.
Tired.
No, okay, see. Oh, that was a very undignified entrance to these boats. I'm an Englishman. Englishmen are seamen too. We're fishermen. English people, don't worry.
My English also good.
Your English is good, but my Khmer is terrible. My Khmer, you know that? You don't say Khmer, they say Khmer. Khmer. Chatitik. What does Chatitik mean? Speak a little bit. Chatitik.
Yeah.
Did many people here suffer from Pol Pot on this lake?
No.
No?
They don't come here.
Pol Pot did not come here, Khmer Rouge.
No.
No? Wow. So people were safe on the lake.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
The people,
Yeah.
they come on the land. In the city area.
Yeah.
In the morning, they don't have food.
A little shop selling everything for the residents of the lake. 2 beers? Oh, no? Why not?
Not morning.
Not morning? What's wrong with you? Can I have 1 beer, please? 1 Cambodia? Cambodia, please. Thank you. Conchera. Wow. Don't want to drink with me? Why not? Thought we were buddies. Oh, yeah, look at that. Look at this. Cambodia Premium Beer. This is the life, T. Travelling around the lake with a beer, good company, nice views, watch out, take my eye out. This is it. This is what life's all about. Cruising on the Tonle Sap. In the pissing bloody rain. What's the chances? Oh my God, T. Let's go! Shit, T. Let's escape. Oh, you